The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. How 13 colonies became a nation. The American Revolution was more than a war. It was a turning point that reshaped political thinking around the world. Between 1775 and 1783, 13 British colonies in North America challenged one of the most powerful empires of the time and emerged as an independent nation. In doing so, they laid the foundation for modern democratic government. By the mid-18th century, the colonies had grown economically and socially, but they lacked political power. Britain controlled trade, imposed taxes, and enforced laws without colonial representation in Parliament. Policies such as the Stamp Act, Townshend Acts, and Tea Act fueled resentment. Colonists believed these measures violated their rights as English subjects. The phrase, "no taxation without representation," captured this growing frustration. Tensions escalated into open conflict in April 1775 with the battles of Lexington and Concord. What began as resistance soon turned into a full-scale revolution. Colonial militias, later organized as the Continental Army, faced a professional British military. Leadership played a key role. George Washington's discipline and perseverance kept the revolutionary cause alive during difficult years. The political ideas behind the revolution were just as important as the fighting. Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke influenced colonial leaders, especially Thomas Jefferson. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence boldly stated that all people are created equal and possess natural rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This document did more than announce separation from Britain. It explained why government exists and asserted that power comes from the consent of the governed. The war reached a turning point in 1777 with the American victory at Saratoga, which convinced France to support the colonies. French military and financial aid proved decisive. After years of struggle, the British surrendered at Yorktown in 1781. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, officially recognized the United States as an independent nation. Independence brought new challenges. The former colonies needed a system of government that balanced freedom with order. The U.S. Constitution, adopted in 1787, created a federal system with checks and balances. The Bill of Rights later guaranteed essential freedoms such as speech, religion, and due process. Together, these ideas formed a model that influenced democratic movements worldwide. The American Revolution's legacy extends far beyond its time. It inspired later revolutions in France, Latin America, and beyond. While the new nation did not immediately fulfill its ideals for all people, the principles established during the Revolution created a framework for ongoing progress. Why the American Revolution still matters in the modern world. The American Revolution did not end in 1783. Its ideas continue to shape political systems, civic values, and democratic movements across the globe. What began as a colonial rebellion became a blueprint for how people could challenge absolute power and build governments based on law, rights, and popular consent. At its core, the revolution introduced a radical idea for its time. Government exists to serve the people, not rule over them. Before this period, most societies were governed by kings who claimed authority through birth or divine right. The American revolutionaries rejected this model. They argued that legitimacy comes from citizens themselves. This principle changed how power was understood and justified. One of the most lasting contributions of the American Revolution is constitutional government. Instead of relying on a single ruler, The United States created a written constitution that clearly defined the limits of power. The separation of powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches was designed to prevent tyranny. This structure has since influenced countless democracies around the world. Equally important was the recognition of individual rights. The Bill of Rights protected freedoms that many people now take for granted, such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press. These rights established a standard that governments could be judged against. When later movements demanded civil rights, women's rights, and voting rights, they often pointed back to the promises made during the Revolution. The American Revolution also reshaped national identity. It helped define what it meant to be a citizen rather than a subject. Loyalty shifted from a monarch to a set of shared values and laws. This idea of civic nationalism, based on principles rather than ethnicity or religion, remains central to American democracy today. Internationally, the Revolution sent a powerful message. It showed that empires were not invincible, and that ordinary people could organize, resist, and succeed. The French Revolution, independence movements in Latin America, and later democratic reforms across Europe drew inspiration from the American example. Even today, democratic activists often reference the same ideals of liberty, equality, and self-rule. However, the Revolution's legacy is not without complexity. The early United States failed to extend freedom equally to all. Enslaved people, indigenous nations, and women were excluded from many rights. Acknowledging these contradictions is essential. The strength of the American system lies in its ability to confront its flaws and evolve through debate, reform, and law. In the modern era, the American Revolution serves as both a foundation and a challenge. It reminds citizens that democracy requires participation, vigilance, and responsibility. Rights are not self-sustaining. They depend on people who are willing to defend institutions, respect the rule of law, and engage in civil discourse. More than 2 centuries later, the Revolution's central idea remains relevant. A free society is built by people who believe they have a voice. That belief continues to define the American experiment and its influence on the world. Key figures of the American Revolution and their lasting impact. The American Revolution was not driven by a single leader or idea. It was shaped by a group of individuals whose political vision, military leadership, and moral courage guided the colonies toward independence. Their decisions continue to influence American democracy today. George Washington stands at the center of the Revolution's military story. Appointed commander of the Continental Army in 1775, he faced shortages of supplies, training, and manpower. Rather than relying on constant victory, Washington focused on endurance. His leadership during harsh winters, especially at Valley Forge, kept the army intact. More importantly, his later decision to step down from power set a powerful precedent. It reinforced the principle that the military must remain under civilian control. Thomas Jefferson gave the Revolution its philosophical voice. As the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson articulated ideas that challenged traditional authority. His emphasis on natural rights and equality reshaped political thought. Though imperfectly applied at the time, these principles became a moral standard for future generations seeking justice and reform. John Adams played a crucial diplomatic role. While often overshadowed by others, Adams worked tirelessly to secure foreign support, particularly from France and the Netherlands. His efforts helped ensure military and financial backing that the colonies desperately needed. Adams later contributed to shaping early American government and defended the rule of law during politically unstable times. Benjamin Franklin was both a thinker and a diplomat. Known for his wit and scientific curiosity, Franklin helped bridge the gap between America and Europe. His popularity in France made him an effective ambassador. Beyond diplomacy, Franklin believed deeply in civic responsibility, education, and public service. These values became part of the American identity. Not all influential figures fought on battlefields or in government halls. Thomas Paine used words as his weapon. His pamphlet, Common Sense, translated complex political ideas into language ordinary people could understand. By arguing that independence was not only necessary but inevitable, Paine mobilized public opinion and unified colonial resistance. Women also played critical, though often overlooked, roles. Abigail Adams urged lawmakers to remember the ladies and consider women's rights in the new nation. Others managed farms, businesses, and even served as messengers and spies. Their contributions kept communities functioning during wartime and laid early groundwork for future movements toward equality. Together, these figures represent more than historical personalities. They embody debates that still shape the United States: power versus liberty, order versus freedom, and ideals versus reality. The American Revolution succeeded not because its leaders were flawless, but because their ideas created a system capable of growth and self-correction. Their legacy reminds Americans that leadership is defined not by authority alone, but by accountability to the people. Major battles of the American Revolution and why they mattered. The American Revolution was decided not by a single battle, but by a series of conflicts that slowly shifted momentum away from the British Empire. Each major engagement revealed the strengths and weaknesses of both sides and shaped the outcome of the war. The first shots were fired in April 1775 at Lexington and Concord. British troops were sent to seize colonial weapons, but local militias resisted. Though militarily small, these clashes had enormous symbolic importance. They proved that armed resistance was possible and united the colonies against British authority. Later that year, the Battle of Bunker Hill demonstrated another crucial lesson. Although British forces technically won, they suffered heavy casualties. The battle showed that inexperienced colonial troops could stand up to the world's most powerful army. This realization strengthened colonial confidence and encouraged broader support for independence. The war reached a turning point in 1777 at Saratoga. American forces surrounded and captured a British army led by General John Burgoyne. This victory convinced France that the colonies had a realistic chance of winning. French military assistance, naval power, and financial support transformed the war into an international conflict, placing immense pressure on Britain. While northern battles gained attention, fighting in the south proved equally important. The British believed they could rely on loyalist support, but resistance was stronger than expected. Leaders such as Nathanael Greene used flexible tactics, avoiding large confrontations while exhausting British forces through smaller engagements. This strategy weakened British control over the region. One of the greatest challenges for the Continental Army came during the Winter of Valley Forge in 1777 to 1778. Though not a battle, it was a critical moment. Soldiers endured hunger, disease, and cold. Under Washington's leadership and with improved training, the Army emerged more disciplined and unified. Valley Forge became a symbol of perseverance and sacrifice. The final decisive event occurred in 1781 at Yorktown. American and French forces trapped British General Cornwallis, while the French Navy blocked escape by sea. Cornwallis's surrender effectively ended major fighting. 2 years later, the Treaty of Paris officially recognized American independence. These battles mattered because they revealed how strategy, leadership, and international alliances could overcome superior military strength. The American victory was not inevitable. It was the result of persistence, adaptability, and belief in a cause larger than individual lives. Today, these battles are remembered not just as military events, but as moments when ordinary people helped shape the future of democratic governance. They remind Americans that independence was earned through determination and collective effort, not simply declared on paper.